Hi class, in this video I'd like to show you how to adjust for large rivers and unsightly spaces that are sometimes seen in justified type. Now when you set your paragraphs to justified type, you are basically redistributing the spaces that are found at the end of paragraphs. So see these spaces, this is flush left, rag right. So you see these uneven spaces at the end of each line of type, that indicates the rag, right? So in order for us to justify this type, the software redistributes these spaces in the line somewhere, and it doesn't always distribute evenly. Let me show you an example. This is an example right here where we get these unusual spaces. Some areas could have letters that are packed really tight together, and other lines could have letters, right here, look how tightly packed these are. And then other lines could be very loose with very loose letter spacing and very loose line spacing, as we can see right here. So what we want to do is we want to accommodate for that and get some even distribution in there. So what I have here is I would just have a demonstration set up. This is just a basic InDesign document, 8.5 by 11 with one text block set up. In that text block, I have placed some text, and it is right now, it is set to left align, rag right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, and I want you to watch what happens when I click this setting right here, justify with last line aligned left. Okay, let me go ahead and place my cursor in that. Now we're just going to go ahead and do that. Justified with left line aligned left. Okay, last line aligned left. That's a mouthful. Justified type with last line aligned left. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to show you these kind of unusual, unsightly spaces and unusual distribution of spaces, some between letters, some between words. And what I want to show you how to adjust that out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come in here. I'm going to place my cursor in anywhere in that text box right there. And I'm just going to come to my paragraph formatting palette. I'm going to come to this little menu right here with the three stripes. That's called a hamburger menu, by the way, three stripes, right? Two buns and a piece of meat in the middle. And then, so I'm going to click that hamburger menu. When that opens up, I'm going to come to the word justification. That's going to open up my justification type setting palette box. And what I want you to do is notice these word spacing and minimum, maximum. We're going to change those. What we're going to do is, and watch the type when I change this, okay? So in the word spacing minimum, I'm going to come to 95. Okay, and then in maximum, did you see that redistribution right there? Maximum, I'm going to come to 103. Okay, and I'm going to duplicate those settings right down here in glyph settings. So we'll go 95, and then over here we'll go 103. Okay, and as you can see, the space has really, actually, it's quite a bit better. It's not perfect yet, but I just want to show you a couple other things. We have this set at auto letting based on the type size. And so we have single word justification. I want to come back down here and I want to say align left. And what that's going to do is that's going to force any single word to the left-hand side. If there's a single word where a paragraph ends on a single word. And for those of you who are saying, well, wait a second, wouldn't that be a typographic widow? Yes, technically you are exactly right. But what this is going to do is I would adjust that typographic widow out. But if in the case it's not, it is just ensures that last word in the paragraph is aligned left. Okay, so again, take a look at the before. See these spaces and unusual, really kind of unusual spacing, and then after. And you can see how it's just redistributed much nicer. Now, one thing I would recommend is that in your paragraphs, all of these settings really depend on the width of the type, the text box. So sometimes you have to come in here and experiment with these numbers. And again, you're looking for minimum word spacing, maximum word spacing, glyph setting, and a minimum and maximum glyph setting. And then a single word justification align left. And then I always keep this selected at Adobe Paragraph Composer. Click OK and you're set. And that's really it. And again, I think that it just warrants another mention that a lot of times you need to experiment with those numbers, experiment with the width of your text block. And really try to get these dialed in. It takes some experimentation, I'm not going to lie. It's not a one-click fix at all. Justified type is problematic in many, many cases. So bear that in mind. One final thing I want to mention is that in justified type, you would want to, sorry about that. As I was saying, in justified type, you want to make sure that you have, justified type will not work with really, really small type width of type boxes. So if this is really narrow, for example, it's going to, let me show you. It's going to redistribute in some really wacky ways. And this is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to adjust for that. So in your type settings, in your justified type settings, if you wish to set justified, make sure that each line of type has at least 7 words. And that should accommodate for this phenomenon here. And again, these little tiny narrow type counts are just about impossible to set up. It takes a lot of work to try to adjust the spaces out of really super narrow type boxes. So keep that in mind. Okay, guys, so again, in summary, this is how you set your justified type settings to accommodate for unusual spaces and gaps between words.